actually, Mike, will you want to turn there we go, our recording's on. Richie, do you have a preamble you could read for us?
I do. Okay. Because of the continuation of the COVID-19 pandemic and the limitations on group gatherings imposed by the governor's executive orders, this meeting is being held by electronic communication means on the Zoom platform. It is authorized by the county's Continuity of Government Ordinance, this authority's resolution of April 22nd, 2020, and the Virginia statute signed into law on April 24th of 2020, permitting this authority to meet electronically to discuss and transact business necessary to continue its operations. The public has real-time audiovisual access to this meeting over Zoom and real-time audio access over telephone. Both is provided in the lawfully posted meeting notice. Everyone on the phone and attending via Zoom from the public is in listen-only mode. The following instructions apply to those who wish to speak during public comment. If you are listening on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature to notify the meeting facilitator. For those joining by telephone, please use *9 to indicate you would like to comment. Tell the board your full name and the magisterial district in which you reside before getting into the substance of your comment. If you don't know your magisterial district, please provide a general location for your home or business. The street location or neighborhood name will suffice. Each speaker will be allowed no more than 3 minutes to comment. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the county's website. With that explanation, I will ask the board members to identify themselves and their general location. So we'll start with the chair, Bucky Walsh.
Bucky Walsh, I'm attending from my home in Albemarle County.
Waldo Jaquith.
I'm attending from my home in Stony Point.
Trevor Henry.
Good evening, attending from the county office building.
Bill Fritz.
Bill Fritz, in my house in Charlottesville.
Let's see, Supervisor Palmer.
My home in Ivy.
And Supervisor Price.
I'm attending from the county office building.
All right. Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Richie. Call this meeting to order. Our first item is the approval of the agenda. I trust everyone has received a copy. Are there any desires to change the agenda?
Move that we approve the agenda.
I'll second that. Let's run down the list. All those in favor, Trevor?
Yes.
Waldo?
Yes.
Donna?
Aye.
Liz?
Yes.
The chair votes yes as well. Who to leave out? Bill?
Yes.
Very good. All righty, the agenda is approved. We go on to brief announcements by authority members. Let's go through the same list. Trevor?
None for me, thank you.
Thank you. Waldo?
None at all.
Donna?
Nothing, thank you.
Liz?
Nothing.
I note that today I received my email invitation from Starlink to join the beta. So they're in Albemarle County, and that prompted me to raise a question in our database. Do we have any Starlink responses for people reporting speeds? And I don't need an answer now. It's just something to look at.
Presumably mean the option of reporting Starlink as their ISP? Or has anybody filled it out from Starlink?
That's just it. In any of those, you know, do we have any data pertaining to Starlink in our database whatsoever? So, and then Bill, anything from you?
Nothing.
Very good. Well, that takes us to the public comment period of our meeting. Richie had read the instructions for how to raise your hand or press *9 if you'd like to make a public comment. Let's see if we have anyone do so. There goes one. Tim at Tim Higgins, do you have your microphone unmuted?
Yes, I do.
What do you have to say?
I was ready to type it into chat, so thanks for the audio. Tim Higgins, Mel Lake, Earlysville. Just like to share 2 points of interest. One is, and this is not a paid announcement, if you are in the Beam internet coverage area, I'd urge you to give it a try. I'm in a marginal coverage area, and actually the only one in Mel Lake was able to get service, but I've had very solid 50 megabit service for a few months now, and it's been steady through the snow and everything else. So if you can try it and you're looking for internet, I'd urge you to give it a shot. The other thing is that I'd echo your announcement about Starlink. They opened accepting $99 waitlist deposits about 2 weeks ago. I had registered to be notified, but didn't receive an email, but one of my neighbors saw a news item and gave me the heads up. And I registered. They're talking about mid to late 2021. So it costs $99. It's fully refundable to get a deposit down. The hardware itself is $500 once service starts, and I think service will be $99 a month. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Higgins, I broke up. I wasn't sure, and he's gone. If you're still listening, if you could just put in the chat who was providing that service. I couldn't.
He cannot do that.
Okay.
I did hear who was providing the service. He was just describing Beam from Chantel.
Oh, Beam. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, it
Didn't hear. Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Just trying to get our attention. I don't see any other hands raised or star nines appearing. All right. We will move on to the next agenda item, number 5, approval of the February 2nd minutes, which were continued on to February 17th as well. I trust everyone has received a copy of those. Bill, do you have any substantive comments that have changed what you sent out?
I sent out revisions to I think it was the February 2nd minutes and corrected the reference to the January meeting that was canceled, which aren't minutes. They'll just be something we have to let people know to go find.
Just a note, yeah.
And I amended the February 17th minutes to note that the other board members, the Board of Supervisors members were in attendance. And I received a couple of typo corrections that I have made. I still have trouble with that no versus known thing for some reason. I don't know why. I have a blind spot for that. So other than that, there were no substantive changes.
Well, you're practically perfect otherwise, so accept it with grace. I would move to approve these minutes if there is no disagreement. Is there a second?
Second.
Let's run the roll real quick. Trevor?
Yes.
Waldo?
Yes.
Donna?
Aye.
Thank you. Liz?
Yes.
I vote yes. And Bill?
Yes.
Very good. The minutes are approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, we've been looking for a connection with Mr. Foster. Are you on board, sir? Ah, there we go.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Foster.
I was freaking out. I could see everyone, and I've been emailing Mike several times, and he said you would invite me, and I thought, okay, what have I got done incorrectly?
Welcome. Perhaps you'd like to introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Lewis Foster. I'm the Broadband Program Manager for Orange County Broadband Authority. We're starting up our own ISP called FiberLink, offering gig services. We getting ready to turn up real customers in April. We've got beta customers already testing.
That's exciting times. Do you have a presentation you want to make, or should we just pepper you with questions?
Just ask me questions.
Well, let me start in then. What's going to be the scope of your coverage? Are you going to cover all of Orange County?
Long term, that's what we're planning on doing. ultimately where Comcast is today, in the town of Orange, Gordonsville, and Lake of the Woods, we're not going there. We're going to the unserved and unserved areas. That's our number one priority.
Mm-hmm. And you're taking fiber to the home?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. About how many folks do you need to hook up?
Our first phase, the presentation that I gave this week, our phase one, we're planning on connecting 4,654 homes passed. Our goal is to pass with connections by August 1st. We're planning on passing and hopefully connecting 1,325 homes. September, we'll hopefully have 1,825. October, 2,325.
Well, I hope you get good weather. That sounds fantastic.
We're behind for the last month because of the weather. I've been praying that I enjoyed the sunshine today.
I bet. And are you going to offer a gigabit connection or multiple different speed connections?
The low end's 100/50 for the residential. We're doing symmetrical for the businesses, which is a little more. Then we're doing a 500/250, and then we're doing a gig/500. So basically, we're charging a one-time connection fee of $480 up to 1,000 feet from the road. Either they could pay $20 a month for 24 months or upfront. That's their choice. We're providing the router included with our service. Wireless router.
If somebody goes beyond 1,000 feet, do you charge them on a per foot basis?
Yes, sir. $1.50 a foot.
$1.50 a foot. And are you comfortable telling us what your service costs are for the different speed tiers?
They're on our website. It's public knowledge. Okay. $49.95 for the lower, $64.95, and $79.99 for a gig.
Do y'all have anything in place to address any kind of equity concerns for folks who need the internet but can't actually afford it?
We currently do not have a rate, but we're going after some emergency funds with COVID, up to $50. We are going after for non-traditional carriers, and our $49.95 would fit into the $50 allotment. We're working with our public school system. They're willing to figure out how we could offset some of the cost of the $480. We're letting them know what we have service available areas and what we're bringing up. So that way they can tell us who's eligible. So they've got to reach out to the parents of the students to find out who's eligible. And also we shared some information with them, like where Comcast is, that from our boots on the ground, so that way they can reach out to Comcast or whatever, because ultimately it don't matter who serves them, long as they get served.
Right. Well, let me ask you one more question. I'll let some of my colleagues have a turn too. When do you think you all will hit break even in terms of your investment versus the income?
We've got to connect 2,000 homes to break even for operation.
Okay, and your break-even interval, this is a follow-up for that last question. It's not another question. You won't break even that day. You'll break even in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years?
Probably 2 to 3 years.
Okay, great. Let me turn the mic over to somebody else.
I'd like to ask, why did Orange decide to do this? Like, what was the broadband situation that was so bad that you said, well, we got to take this over? The free market's not going to solve this on its own.
Well, basically, they brought me up here because this is my fourth startup from a nonprofit to broadband to IT. They started out as a middle mile. We tried to go with Vadi, tried to recruit providers because we didn't want to get into business. Everyone we brought to the table was not strong enough or big enough to do it, so we got deemed on state level. We said, well, the Comcast of the world or other folks, they not interested. Same song and dance. If they don't get a return on investment in a shorter time, they're not. So basically, the Board of Supervisors took a lot of heat, and the Broadband Authority took a lot of heat. So they listened to their citizens and said, well, if nobody else is going to do it, we're just going to have to do it. and we're building it out underground, mainly because we're doing our public safety connectivity through the fiber, and also with public safety, you're mainly concerned about storms of ice and snow, and you're going to have a better coverage by having it in ground. It's going to cost a little more, but long term, you're going to be better off with services. And ultimately, that's one of the negative things about putting stuff in the pole up in this lines up here. People's not realizing, a lot of people are starting to put it on the pole, but when you start getting mission critical applications and doing things, the power companies are going to focus on power first. Broadband's going to be second. I mean, you go back to your traditional carriers, look at your Verizon, look at the CenturyLink. Most of their stuff's buried, correct? Critical. I mean, that's something that people don't think. We look at the cheapest way, but ultimately, it's the next utility. It's a lifeline long-term. It's like you're doing today with a phone line, copper, you got phone, you can dial out. Ultimately, the technology is going to be there. You've got to have robust connectivity, because if you got someone home that's got on life care, needs to be monitored, they need to be connected. If I was a family member, I think if I was to get cut down from an ice storm or whatever and can't get broadband, that's not a good day if I'm the loved one caregiver or family. It costs more, but you pay for what you get.
What's the broadband situation absent y'all? Who currently serves Orange and where?
We have Comcast. They're proper of Orangetown, Gordonsville. They go to Lake of the Woods, and a small area off of 15 between Orange and Gordonsville, and also Orange headed toward Lake of the Woods. So basically, most of the big companies, they cherry pick where they go so they can get the most return on investment. If they would have took it and reinvest that money to the outside areas, same way with Verizon, we wouldn't be in this discussion today. Unfortunately, we all have investment, correct, for our retirement. We probably all invested in Comcast, Verizon, AT&T, or whoever in some of our funds, and we want to make money. We want, you know what I'm saying? Basically, we drive that, so we're our worst enemy, because there's no money to be made in rural broadband. Just like the rural electric, nothing's to be made. It's just, it works better from a co-op type of perspective or a government aspect, because why does government end public safety? Why do they run jails? Why do they run a lot of water utility? There's no money into it. It's very capital intensive. So rural broadband is kind of where we're at today. There's no money in it. So ultimately the obstacles needs to be flattened out. So if the electric co-ops don't do it, they should provide, especially Virginia, there's a lot of roadblocks compared to Georgia. You need to be able to stand up. I mean, most governments can run a water utility. There's governments that run power, has gas. If you set it up right and have competent people, checks and balance, they could do it. But you got to have a strong plan, and you got to have a will. Every government and every person is not cut out. You got to basically have an entrepreneurship to make this happen. And I've got a lot of experience in being entrepreneurs and making this happen. And ultimately, for governments to get in this business, they've got to have a strong leader, entrepreneur. And government has a hard time of changing how they do business. You got a lot of restrictive rules for broadband in Virginia, but also your procurement policies. As far as like you having to go through this, that, and to run a business and utility, you need that flexibility. Because it is a business. I mean, if you don't make enough money, how can you keep the lights on, provide service, and expand services?
Right. You got to treat it like a business.
Exactly. You've got to get the government out of it. It's got to run like a business, but you can do it with an authority. Like you have water.
What's the size of your staff that's working on this?
We've got 4 other people, but we've got our NOC services being outsourced 24/7 monitoring the system. We're using subs to do the drop cables. We're trying to outsource as much as we can, but the critical stuff from the financial aspect and planning, we're trying to keep that focused internally to keep people on task. Like I said, it's not made for everyone. You got to have a special leader to make it happen.
What kind of initial appropriation outlay has the county to come up with to get this started?
Initially, they put in $3 million. Also, there was money from E-rate, from the local public school system, got E-rate funds. And the county added, I believe, close to $1 million to upsize the fiber. And also we did a public safety radio system. We used that money to build additional fibers. We got approximately $2 million from COVID funds to build hotspots, which we put in 30 miles in about 3 months. So we're trying to get money from other areas. We're probably going to borrow some additional money to finish out our phase 1, like a revenue bond. We're still working through that, but it looks like we might be able to participate in going after some Vadi funds this year based on the budget. So we're going to go hard, showing our track record. We did the COVID hotspots, that we mean business. We're real.
What kind of a revenue bond value are you looking at?
Probably about between 5 and 10 million.
Okay. And that would cover how many homes?
Well, basically we're talking about 4,000 homes today, but we're hoping where you're talking about RDOF money as far as the satellite, that we're hoping Vadi sees the value in fiber to the home so we can target some of those areas, because it's not going to penetrate the cover we have. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. A lot of it's smart smoke and mirrors that they're trying to get to on coverage. I mean, look at your satellite today. It's still up in the air floating around. Your wireless, you have problems today. Why? You know what I'm saying? When the tree cover comes, I mean, you have to get under the canopy. And it just don't, you can have all the wireless stuff. Your 5G is basically only metro suburban area. It is a marketing ploy by the big folks trying to satisfy the people in Washington, D.C., but the rural people suffer.
Louis, am I right that from your description that y'all started with your school network basically and built out from there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We did schools, we did public safety, we did Vadi, additional money. It's why we're going after this CARES Act emergency, because if we can get enough subscribers using it and additional pay, so that way we're going to have money that we can roll back into it. Ultimately, we're not intending to make a profit. And the money we bring in, we want to operation, pay it, but also reinvest back into the infrastructure.
Do you see you as a long-term operator of this, or do you see it as something that once it's up and running could be, spun off?
We never know what tomorrow brings, but if the right price based, probably, I'm sure the Broadband Authority would probably willing to sell it. But right now, it's like all your big companies. Just take for Cisco, for example. How many times they bought startups or get things because they're so big, they have no heart for innovation. It's the same thing in rural broadband. The big companies are so big, can't be agile, and you're going to see a lot of startups that probably will be eventually. So you look at Lumos, it was bought by Segra. Segra bought other folks. Ultimately, it's the same thing with Level 3 with CenturyLink. You follow me? There's a lot of startups, and that's just part of technology, and that's America. You start out, the innovation starts at the smallest level and move forward. So your answer is, I don't know what tomorrow would bring, but I'm sure as we get through and start getting profitable, it would probably be a good idea if somebody bigger would probably come in and do it. But right now, the current providers just they don't want to talk. They will talk at the Capitol Hill and everything else, saying they're doing something, but when it comes down to actually doing something, they're all talk and no action.
And a technical question: if you put in some of your fiber, do you connect in with other networks, or is this all each as a standalone?
We're an open network. If somebody wants to use our fiber, we'll lease it. We're tying cell sites. That's where you can get a lot of money. If we can get some money to additional revenue to build out to connect unserved areas, money's money. It don't matter where it comes from.
So you're going after 4,000 houses, which my understanding from hearing you speak is that that's a portion of of Orange County. How many square miles are you looking at, and how many square miles is the ultimate area if you connected everybody in Orange County?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not sure how many square miles. I've been here about 18 months. I'm from Georgia, so I'm looking at where when we did a survey, I looked at where the survey where we had the red dots, that means no service, or yellow, very limited. So I started chasing dots where the people's at that don't have service. So I've never looked at it from that angle.
Thanks. Okay.
How many miles of fiber do you plan to build out?
Probably about 400.
How much is that running you per mile, and what is it you're putting in the ground? You know, conduit, and how many strands?
Well, basically, we're going to roll taps now, which you can maximize your fiber. We're now going. We did a lot of middle mile with like 288, 144 with transport, which fiber to home. We're strategically putting our node sites that we can feed east, west, north, and south, so we can use those same fibers multiple times. So we're starting 48 count fiber. And we're putting it all in conduit because it protects it. But also if we need to add additional fiber down the road, we can put it in the conduit.
That's great.
So,
are there any other questions for Mr. Foster?
Mike, what do you think we should know from Mr. Foster while he's here? What questions would you think we should ask?
My request is to work with FiberLink as a viable partner for Vadi 2022 and or a direct service line that's included in your plans that go across the 3 thoroughfares that are right up against the Albemarle border. We're leaving people out. In this particular place, you know, it's either Vineyard Road or Monday Road, and even on Route 20, multiple people there are not in RDUF for some reason. They haven't been included in RDUF, so there's no funding mechanism. CenturyLink has not put any of this area into any of their prior Vadi applications. Comcast has shown no interest. So they're on a desert, which FiberLink is the best solution. You know, there was some hope that Rappahannock Electric Co-op would move toward providing fiber through their middle mile, as well as, you know, potentially going all the way to the meter. So Lewis, you know, I am anxious to do a partnership with you all to put something in for Vadi 2022, or if the Broadband Authority sees their way clear to do something ahead of Vadi 2022, definitely willing to work with you. So putting that out there, that's my main question about. I just want to see people get fiber to their premise, and you've got a good model going on. There's no reason it can't cross county lines. Fiber doesn't stop and start at a border, and ridiculously, that's the way things are seemingly happening here.
Well, let's ask that question. Does your charter doesn't prevent you from crossing the county line, does it?
No, as a broadband authority, you can go across. The biggest thing is, first of all, the broadband authority said our focus internally is getting Orange, but if you can get money to pay, you know what I'm saying, to help offset that, I don't see why they would turn it down, because any revenue would get would be additional that could be going back, building additional fiber, unserved areas in Orange. There could be other areas, basically at Vadi. It looks good to have multiple governments working together too. But the biggest thing is, we probably, if you're interested, we probably need to set up a meeting with our chairman or vice chairman, and the same with your broadband authority, to get some dialogue going to figure out what is the best route to go to make forward. I'm an implementer. I'm not a decision maker. It makes sense to collaborate and work and to improve our internet access for the entire region.
That sounds good. Any other questions for Mr. Foster?
I do.
I will say this, I'm an alpha site, so I've got a gig site. So you see, I'm in the middle of nowhere, but I've got internet. We're getting ready to hook up 4 pre-betas, my neighbors, tomorrow.
It's good to be your neighbor.
Liz, did you have a question?
But if anything that I could do to help you, just let me know.
One last question for you, sir. Are there some lessons learned that you'd share with us at this point?
Probably after you've done your due diligence, if you can't find, just reach out to other governors to see kind of what they're doing. I mean, what we're doing in Orange is not the only solution. Just, you know what I'm saying? There's multiple ways of doing it. It is very expensive to get into the business. Fortunately, the Orange County, it already started the investment with a middle mile that started before I was here. And the ones that don't have the infrastructure today, it's going to be hard to pull off this day and age to get service sooner than later.
So Orange had already put in the middle mile in a good portion of where you're working.
Yes, ma'am. We've got a complete ring going up to Equinix and Culpeper. We're working in some other connectivity, some other areas far as getting DIA and additional failover. Ultimately, the more networks you get connected together, think about it from a government public safety aspect, a two-way radio. There's other things that you could use. I mean, you got different cores for the 800 radio system. I mean, there's a lot of things that could do interoperability, regional, for as economic development. So you need to have that open for as it could be a regional data center coming. I mean, look at Northern Virginia. You never know what could happen in our backyard. It's just a matter of all the economic development folks working together, have a common goal. Ultimately, like we said in Georgia, my former life is if a company comes in and moves in a rural area, it's going to actually benefit other counties because they're all not going to live in that same or shop in that same county. They're going to go over to other areas. So you look at it from the bigger picture.
So when you said that you put the initial investment was $3 million from the county, that did not include that middle mile infrastructure. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Do you know how much they spent on that? That was prior to you coming, but.
Yes, I believe for us the upgrade of the fiber, which was originally close to 30,000, Michael might know better than I did. He's probably read up, but it was approximately 30 miles. And I think they spent close to $1 million upsizing it. And they spent probably like 1.8 to 1.9 million on the fiber laterals for the public safety system. I'm not sure, it's probably about 20 miles. And then basically they gave the loan, or basically gave the authority $3 million to start building out the laterals for fiber to the home, which is what we're starting to hook up now. And fortunately, we got close to $2 million of COVID funds that we were able to extend it. So now we're going to get more footprints sooner than later. And some of these places wouldn't have got fiber if it hadn't been COVID, that probably for 5 or 6 years. You're talking to some of these places only like 3 or 4 homes per mile.
Right.
And I strategically, when we went after it, can we put these hot spots at churches or nonprofit folks that doesn't have service so we can get the longest mile, so then we can come back and eventually build laterals off of it and connect down the road. You see where we're headed?
Wasn't an accident what you did.
Sometimes you got to reverse engineer what you're trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
Always think ahead of the game and use the resources to your best advantage long term.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir. If I may have the floor, Chair. Just
Sure, Mike.
a quick question following up a couple of things that are hit home. It goes back to that regional effort is clearly a governor's goal. We need to get to the point where we have universal broadband across the Commonwealth, and making sure that people have reliability is part of that equation. So there's a genuine need to work together through multiple regions to make sure people have redundancy. One fiber cut bringing down 1,000 homes is unacceptable. There's got to be a way to work around it. So we need to work together to make sure that's happening. The second one is we're running into a situation where we're a little bit behind on training, I think, and maybe you can explain where you're getting a little bit of slowdown here. Do we have enough skilled laborers and enough technicians and enough people to really ramp up and do this in a more expedient fashion? Are you running into issues with getting people to get to work? Do you have enough equipment? Those types of things.
That question was directed toward me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Ultimately, this day and age is a challenge for the workforce. Unfortunately, like at one time, unemployment rates, they've made so much money, more than they could go get a job, which hurt the situation. But also people's really terrified with the COVID situation. It's got other illnesses, the concern that they're going to be able to live. I mean, there's a lot of things, uncertainty, which I understand that, but ultimately every day it's a challenge because our contractors, they have bring in a new labor to help. They'll work for a day or two. Then if they make a 25 cents or $1 an hour, they just going to take off. So it's a never ending battle there for the companies that are doing work for us. But what we're trying to do is now going with multiple companies, like all the installs, we're subbing out. We're trying to have multiple installers and saying, you need to hire additional people to build your business to help us, because we don't want to have 10 or 15 installers on our staff. Once we get built out and connected, we don't want to have that potential as far as a payroll expense. So we're trying to create entrepreneurship in the private sector. Say, hey, you bring in additional people, help us, then you will be trained. Hopefully there'll be other areas that you could do the same thing that needs broadband in an area that you can go to another area, because look at our areas in the region. We're probably what, 75, 80% of our rural area in that region doesn't have broadband. So there's going to be plenty of jobs. That's the kind of thing we need to kind of sell to these folks, from the fiber splicers to the installers. Say, look at it bigger than this job. If you got skills and you develop in your staff, you got a long-term opportunity. We probably need to work with our school systems. I mean, a lot of this stuff, you don't have to have a college degree. As long as you got a technical degree or want to learn a trade. Look how many people that can do welding, plumbing. It's the same thing with fiber. If you splice or you know how to install, and a lot of these kids today, they know how to set up a wireless router. They can read instruction. They know the basic stuff, how to do a speed test. So people that's not want to go to college, this would be a good opportunity, but just having to get the right people, our contractors talking to the people at the school system, because it could be some people there that need some help, that needs a job part-time. I mean, there's enough work to go around on the weekends. I mean, those are the type of things I think that's the challenge. Like, who do you, and I have the same question, who do I need to talk to get enough information to get to the private provider, our contractor, because a lot of times they don't know. So I think that's where we could work together as a region. I'm from Georgia, so I'm not sure how the school system works. I know we've got some technical schools around here, so but that's a good start.
Thanks for that. There are some, I mean, the community colleges, we have a group called Network to Work, which is now a state group that we could work with. So I know we're belaboring the point. I just think that there's some skills that could be developed and a new labor force that is being generated from this immediate need. And maybe we can work together to work with the Commonwealth and get some forward motion on that.
Mike,
All right.
You got some contacts in this local, let me know. So I want to share that with our contractors. So that way you might have additional pool of workers, and hopefully they can start here and work other areas and build their business, because that's what it is, entrepreneurship on the startups.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Foster, thank you very much for your time. It's been very informative, very exciting about what y'all are doing. And I know we as a board wish you all the luck in the world, and good weather for that matter.
Well, thank you for the invite, and anytime I can help you, don't hesitate to reach out, and you have a wonderful day.
We will be in touch. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That was fascinating.
It really was. Waldo, thank you for introducing us.
I'm so grateful to Lewis for taking the time.
It was fantastic. That moves us on to our old business agenda. We've got the Vadi 2020 and 2021 updates. Mike? Mike, you're
muted, Mike.
Okay, first, thank you for the floor. The first thing I have to apologize about is not everyone was introduced to John Noreen, and John is helping me manage all of the Zoom machinations. So he's doing a great job working on that. So you'll see him in the panel as well as just participating in a way that's really helping me so I can focus a little more. So thank you for that little bit of time. Derek Kelly is with us, and Derek and I met earlier today, and he is interested, and I expressed the same interest for him to present to the board, if that's okay with the chair. I'd like to
Sure, give us the best update. That'd be great. Okay.
And this is a good call for John to help me and promote Derek to panelist, or I can do it too, but let's there you go. Thank you, John. Hi, Derek.
There's Derek. Welcome.
Hey, good evening, everyone.
Thanks for joining. Okay, thank you.
I missed a couple seconds. Did you introduce me?
Well, this is Derek Kelly. Derek Kelly is the government affairs manager for the state of Virginia, North Carolina. I think you've got another one in there. So lots of great work bringing broadband to communities across the Atlantic Coast Conference. So you can see where my brain is a little bit, but
it is basketball season.
That's right. So Derek's here. So he's going to give us an update on the Virginia Telecommunication Initiative 2020. And we'll talk a little bit about 2021 as a team. So I'll turn it over for you, Derek, on the 2020 stuff.
Thanks, Mike. And I was hoping by now we would have announcement that we were actually going to be taking customer orders, but this year has not been very good from a weather perspective, and we've lost a lot of productive days and weeks. Like last week, we really didn't get any fiber placed last week and on Monday, and there's just been a number of weeks where either snow, ice, or just too much rain to effectively go out there and run our equipment. So we're a little bit behind schedule, but met with our engineering team today and sort of setting up a time frame of when we're expecting to get everything done. So the first two project areas that are going to launch are our Buffalo Hills and our Coles Riding Road projects. All of the fiber for those jobs have been placed. They've been working on splicing fiber in all of the terminals that are along the road and also in our equipment. And all the equipment is turned up. If we can get some good weather here like today, hopefully we'll finish up the fiber splicing and be ready to start taking orders, if I had to guess, probably about 3 weeks from now. And then right on the heels of that will be our Scottsville Road project. So those will be the first three that launch. Once we get those launched, that'll be 296 out of our 837 homes we'll be able to be taking orders and doing installs for. So that's the three that we're expecting to launch in March. And then behind that in April, we're projecting out, they'll be spaced out a little bit, but the next three that'll launch will be Watts Passage, our Keene and Hatton projects. So combined there, about 250 more homes. And then our last two projects are the two big ones. So our Howardsville and our Green Creek Road projects. combined, they have about 23 miles worth of fiber placement that's required. So far, we've placed about a quarter of the fiber required on Green Creek Road and about 15% of the fiber on our Howardsville project. So those two are just going to take the most amount of time to get all the fiber placed and spliced. And hopefully moving forward over the next 60 days or so, hopefully the weather cooperates a lot more than it has in the last 60 days. But I know that working with Mike, we're going to try getting where we can publish at least a tentative schedule on the FAQ page, just to ease people's minds that progress is still being made. And if everyone can just put up some good thoughts, prayers, or whatever for some sunny skies, it would be helpful.
On the quarries, are they, and Skylar, is that completed now, and have people been hooked up on that one? I know it wasn't part of the Vadi, but it was a separate project that you guys were doing, and I can't remember if that was completed.
I would have to look into that one. You said the quarries?
The quarries, it's in Skylar. It's a neighborhood that you guys were doing. Maybe Mike actually knows.
Yeah, I believe that's one where we were working with the homeowners association, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure. I think you were. Mike, do you know? On the quarries?
I'll have to find out. I'm with Derek on this. I'll have to find out, Supervisor Palmer, if it's possible and done through an aid to construction, it would have been in advance of either Vadi 2020, because I believe it's in the Havenwood Lane as an example. I think there's another road there called Firefly Lane, or
Fireflies,
both of those roads are in the Vadi 2020 service area. So, it's possible they were activated early, but we'll have to check with Glenn, Derek.
Yeah, I think it actually may be our consumer sales team, but I can check and get back with you, Supervisor Palmer.
Okay, thanks. And April is Green Creek Road in Howardsville. Is that what you said? By the end of April, you're expecting that to happen?
So March will be the Buffalo Hills, Coles Riding Road, and Scottsville Road. April will be Watts Passage, Keene, and Hatton. And then we're aiming for the very first part of May, like the first week of May, to launch Howardsville and Green Creek Road.
Okay, thank you.
So, and as we get a little bit closer, we should be able to narrow down exactly when we think those will be. Hopefully the weather cooperates.
Okay.
Any other questions about Vadi 2020? Let's move on to 2021 then. When are they going to tell us?
Thank you. That's the question of the hour. Last week, I made a direct request to find out when we're going to hear the announcements for Vadi 2022 or 2021. Just for everyone's, I guess you could call it, it's a very, things are really busy at DHCD. I don't know how else to explain it. RDUF put a lot of things into disarray, I guess would be the right word, like trying to scramble and make sure that they were doing things correctly based on the high number of RDUF areas that came back after the auction. So they scrambled and made some determinations that applications that had any type of RDUF overlap would require that the applicants work together to de-scope or re-scope their projects. Fortunately, CenturyLink was working very hard in that regard and did the re-scoping, but both from a budgetary as well as a passings count, and we submitted 2 days ahead of the DHCD deadline. In addition, we received some additional information requests back that weren't part of the original rescope. So if you look at that from a good perspective, it's like, well, we gave them everything that they asked for, and then they wanted to find out a little bit more, which we provided quickly, and they were satisfied with that. So long story, the applications, all of them that were in the second round, are being scored, and it'll be 3 or 4 weeks before we hear an announcement. So the scoring is going to happen. Results go to the governor's office, and then the governor's office will make the announcement, similar to how the first round. So it's another 3 weeks. That's all I can get out of them. I'm trying to obtain more. We're doing the best we can to stay on top of it. Derek, you haven't heard anything different on 2021, right?
No, they did some interviews with providers that were RDOF recipients in the state, absent the Vadi discussion, just to have some more confidential conversations around RDOF. So after the quiet period ended, I believe those interviews ended at the end of last week. So every indication is that, you know, we'll hear something in the coming weeks.
Yeah. And just to reiterate on the DHCD thing, one of the reasons that they're busier than usual is that they're preparing for Vadi 2022. So there's a lot of work going on there. And I want to remind the board, and also potentially have talking points for the Board of Supervisors, that RDOF, as it stands, the RECC, the Rural Electric Co-op Coalition, that won a significant amount of funds through the RDOF auction, our participant in that is CVSI, which is a subsidiary of Civic Firefly. And we now know from the award notice that those areas that are shown in our RDOF map are to be served, if the funding all figures correctly and is provided, would be served by their Firefly organization. So we're anxiously awaiting like confirmation and further. So I just want to make sure that people don't mistake RDOF as something that's negative. It can be a positive. It's not quite there at a positive. The same thing is true for Vadi 2021. We are awaiting the announcement from the Commonwealth to say whether or not we're going to be offered funds. The same thing is happening at the federal government to make sure that everything is in line and in order for RDOF funds to come to Firefly. So any questions about that? I hope I'm being optimistic, but at the same time realistic that things could happen that we don't foresee right now that may turn this into, we're going to have to do a lot more funding outside of either RDOF or state funding. If we get both, you know, we're really in a really good space. So
just to be clear, Mike, we're not actually getting any RDOF funding.
Right, exactly. Thank you, Chair. Exactly.
It's RDOF funding being spent on customers in Albemarle.
Right. Good way to put it.
Okay.
Yep.
But there's no reason not to expect that to go forward. So I would expect that perhaps as soon as the next meeting, we might have a better read on Vadi 2021 from your comments.
Yes. Yes, sir.
And one quick question, what is CVSI? You said it's a subsidiary of Civic, but what's it doing?
Yes.
Is it another co-op or?
That's the holding company that owns Firefly.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks.
Yeah, well, yes, that's okay. It. That's correct.
Got it.
Yep.
Got
it. Have we pretty much exhausted the RDOF status topic as well, Mike? Or is there something else you want to say there?
That's it. Thank you, Chair.
And then the financial report, Trevor, I didn't see any major updates since the last one. Is there anything you want to comment on?
No change since last month.
Very good.
Thanks.
Well, that takes us conveniently into new business. And we've got the Board of Supervisors actions from just last week impacting broadband. Who's going to run with that ball? Is that you, Trevor?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the authority. Mike and I, along with Bucky, presented to the Board of Supervisors last week, of which, from doing the math right, at least 5 of us in this meeting were in that meeting. But I thought it would be helpful for this discussion, and really, I think we may hit on new business A and new business B, you know, in this next section. But Mike and I wanted to present just kind of a summary level update on what was presented to the board, but then do a little bit of a deep dive into kind of the 3 components of the program to answer authority questions. give the board, or just confirm the action that the Board of Supervisors took last Wednesday, and then also preview the FY22 budget request, which was made public today, as a county executive presented the budget, his budget recommendation to the Board of Supervisors from 12 to 1. So the purpose is to inform, update, hopefully fill in some blanks, and answer questions that the authority would have. There's no action that is needed in this discussion at this point, but that future action and discussions will happen. That I think is good news. I think there's funding that we're going to have to help continue to really move the needle, and I want to thank everybody on this group that has supported this program and supported this latest initiative, and a lot of heavy lifting from our chief administration officer, and who wears his IT cape at night, apparently, for everything else, along with Bucky and John Noreen provided a lot of input on what we want ahead and presented to the board. So I'm going to share a PowerPoint just to help guide the conversation, if that is okay. And I don't do this often in Zoom.
It's working.
Okay, can you let me go to presentation mode.
Good job.
Can I see that?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so Mike and I are going to just kind of walk through what was presented to the board.
Showing your notes on the side as well, Trevor.
Sorry?
It's showing the slide and your notes over to the side of it as well. I don't know if that's what you intended.
That is not what I intended.
Nice to see your notes.
I think it might be at the presentation mode. Yeah,
not presentation mode.
Not presentation mode. High presenter view.
No.
Well, can you say this is not in presenter mode, but will this
we can
be
see
okay?
it fine. Sure.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Supervisor Price.
Yeah, that's fine. That's better than the other one.
Okay. I'll need some technical training. So, background, we know kind of when the authority was formed. The expansion of broadband has been a strategic priority with our Board of Supervisors of 2022. The pandemic hit, and it's been just perfect storm of need that has been identified by our community, by those that even had broadband, but they didn't realize that it was inadequate for now having 3 people, 4 people working out of the house, having remote learning, etc. And so just the need has been really accelerated. There were a series of board meetings in the fall, and there's direction that was given to the county executive to come back to the board at the meeting that we just had last week with a program recommendation to further lift up the broadband program for the community. And so that's what we did. The framework of this program we presented to ABBA back in November, but Mike and I worked through kind of the budget numbers, and then work through that with the county executive and CFO in the December and January timeframe to get to last week. At a high level, the 3 components of the broadband program, which is the continuation of the infrastructure work that we have really been doing with the $1 million that was a one-time funding appropriation to ABBA, and our use to draw down Vadi grants to try to maximize our dollar, working with the state and ISPs. That infrastructure is still the most significant component of the program that came in the recommendation. But there's also a new part, which is an affordability program. And so this is putting an equity lens around the ability to access broadband. It's for both those that that don't have the ability to access it now, and those that do have the theoretical ability but can't actually afford it. And Mike's going to talk in a little bit of detail about both of these. And then the last piece is a broadband office, which is part of our recommendation in the FY22 budget. And it's to create 2 new FTEs, 2 new full-time equivalent positions in an office or a division of the county executive that is to manage broadband for the community, and also to support the infrastructures within the county, support broadband authority, et cetera. I'll talk in a little more depth and detail about what that office looks like and the roles and responsibilities of it. And then finally, at the end, I'll come back with what is in our FY22 budget request that the Board of Supervisors received today. Mike, I'll turn it over to you if you want to talk about infrastructure.
Okay. Thank you, Trevor. Great work on getting this to the Board of Supervisors, and we still have to go through the budget process, but for the broadband office. But the funds that are going to be available are on target to be appropriated in March 17th. So we'll be working with those funds through the rest of the fiscal year. I think there's more on that later. As you know, we're working with a great partner. Chantel Beam has been very aggressive in bringing wireless to our community. Many people have been able to benefit from that. So we're very proud of the work that happened. It happened in a rush format during a pandemic, and it did a great service to many people, and they're still signing people up. The people who don't get signed up are very disappointed, but those who do get signed up are definitely reaping the benefits. We talked a little bit about the RDUF, the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. That was good news. It's certainly, we've got our ways to go on that, but we'll keep moving forward. One of the reasons why I asked Lewis Foster the question about how quickly can we move is we may have an opportunity to influence faster activation. If we work together and get the people on the ground who can do the work to make ready, whether they're telephone poles or power poles or building, plowing in some fiber, we just need more hands on deck. It's a situation across the Commonwealth that really needs to be addressed, and hopefully on the federal level, they'll see a way to make that available to us. The Vadi 2022, if you look back, and I was thinking about putting a time frame together, around this time last year, we were starting an effort to work toward a Vadi 2021 application. So that process is going to start again. We're learning every year. And there's a real possibility that 2022 will be a banner year for us. So we just have to keep focused on the 2022 guidelines and working with DHCD to make sure they're addressing what seems to be an antiquated speed requirement, meaning right now it's 25 and 3, and we're finding, as Trevor had mentioned, that 25 and 3 for families who have more than one person trying to do telework, or more than one person doing telework and another doing distance learning, it's not satisfying adequate needs. So we're working in that direction. So we are actively working. John Noreen is doing an outstanding job working with Damon Pettit, and we're putting together detailed analysis on what exactly is left. How far have we come? What has our progress been? And how many new locations or existing locations still need to be served? And that's an ongoing thing we will bring back to the Broadband Authority on the March 24th meeting. So next March meeting, we'll have some more information about the details of that analysis. Because of the addition of the funds, the money that is going to be appropriated, we have the opportunity to do some direct funds. So we'll be looking at some other opportunities to possibly work through some direct funding opportunities. So lots to come on that. It's really great that the Board of Supervisors decided to move forward with the request, and look forward to working on all of these things. So next slide, I think. So one of the things that we've realized because of the pandemic is that there is significant amount of equity lacking in Albemarle County. There's numerous areas of the county which have no access to internet. It's not as prevalent in the urban ring and in the development areas, but in the rural areas, the Broadband Authority decided as part of their goals and principles and evaluations of projects that we would look at the poverty levels of specific areas and give more emphasis on those particular areas. The school division stepped forward, and within their realm, the areas where they can control, they've done a lot of work to make equity an important part of their process of getting people over the digital gap. We can do the same. I mean, it's definitely part of our community value as a county. The Broadband Authority has indicated that they're working in this direction. As part of this, we're going to work with our Office of Equity and Inclusion, Siri Russell, and our Department of Social Services, and work through ways that we can promote affordability for those who have been struggling financial and are otherwise in a vulnerable population. So we're working to this goal, and we'll have multiple meetings to discuss this. We're also considering a broadband affordability support model for homes that are further from the main road. So as you get further into the rural areas, some of the homes are much farther off the main roads than others. We may be introducing a model that allows people to come to us and request funds either through the county or through the Broadband Authority. So a lot more to work there. So the next slide is the Tiger teams, just letting you know there's a lot going on at the federal level. Probably the most significant thing that's happening is the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program, otherwise known as the EBB program. So EBB program is the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program, which is a significant program for those who qualify, and the qualifications are through Medicaid, through SNAP, through other ways, similar to Lifeline, all the things, free and reduced lunch. There's multiple ways that people can qualify, Pell Grants. So we're participating in that as a advocate, meaning as the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program is announced, we'll be working to get the information out into the community. So that's a really good thing that we're going to be doing. The one part of that that's important to note is that it does have an expiration, meaning the federal funds will either be all used, or 6 months after DHS declares the emergency is over, the program ends. So there's a limited time. The biggest part of that benefit is a $50 a month support, $50 a month benefit to offset your broadband costs. So we're going to help people determine how they can apply. The other important thing that we're working on today is with our existing service providers, we're making sure that they are working to participate in the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program. It's not a requirement as an ISP to participate in the EBP program, but we're encouraging that and also supporting them. So as you can see, there's a lot going on to get this rolling. We would like to be one of the first localities in Virginia to make positive motion on this affordability equation, and I think we're in a good position to do so. So that's what I had to say about affordability. I appreciate the time to talk, Trevor. Back to you.
Well, Mike, is there an intention to bring this topic back with some outcomes from this Tiger team effort, with recommendation and discussion with ABBA on the program, and how it should be modeled and implemented? Is that a next step?
Yes, I would appreciate the Broadband Authority's input to the program. I think it's going to be more of a function of local government. It's not within the Broadband Authority's charter to work toward this type of goal. Now, the Broadband Authority could come back to us and say, yes, we'd like to be an active participant in this, but we're going to be looking for volunteers, people to help make this a reality. Any type of input that's provided by the Broadband Authority is more than welcome. And I'd like the opportunity at the March meeting to discuss progress and maybe put a call out for action to see what the Broadband Authority would like to do to help us move toward this goal of being the best provider of support for these affordability programs. Does that answer? Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Mike. And we'll at the end certainly be available for Broadband Authority questions and input on any of these programs. Last piece that I'll talk about is the Broadband Office. This is a program that requires our best effort as a county to perform and to execute. And yes, we rely, the modeling, to date is really relying upon, state funding, some match, and the ISPs to do the work. This, I think, is an expansion of that. And so in order to really manage this work in a way that can be as effective and successful as we think is possible, we felt it was important that we recommend a dedication of resources to this effort. And so that's what is in the 22 requests to the Board of Supervisors. And it's not a one and done expectation. This is an expectation of the creation of this office and a continuing need to help us in our customer service and execution of broadband access and extension into the community. I have 2 slides on this. This one really is at a summary level. The functions for the office is, one, it's direct support to this authority, to this group. It is stakeholder coordination and collaboration. So it's a lot of leadership work and a lot of management, and kind of detailed analysis work. But, leadership is supporting of broadband, supporting of the planning, working at the regional level, the state level, the federal level. You can read the bullets. There's a project management component to this, and there's a heavy constituent services component. This is all work that we're doing now. This is the formalization of this work with dedicated resources to do it. We're modeling it after kind of a blending of the Economic Development Office structure and our Office of Equity and Inclusion. It would be part of our county executive team, 2 FTEs, and it would be, a direct report to the county executive, but a strong line of support to ABBA, and to our community. This next slide, it's a busy slide, but I think it gives you a sense of kind of the overlap of the work. 2 full-time equivalents. The director, I really look as leadership, management, direction, negotiation, troubleshooting, planning, working across the community, across the organization. We also need the administrative support, an analyst 2 or that type of level that can then really help with the administrative side of the office. Our budget tracking, our budget reporting, we have performance agreements, that have been approved through the board and the EDO that we have to track. There's working with finance, supporting ABBA, reports to ABBA, our quarterly report to the Board of Supervisors, the mechanics of invoice processing, the mapping work that we're doing, and then a very, very heavy citizen response need. We, as many members of this authority see, there's a lot of communication coming in from our community, asking a lot of good and a lot of hard questions, and we spend a lot of time reporting on that. Our hope is with the expansion of resources, we're able to capture that, to track it, and to better really report on these areas of customer service concerns. There's also a piece in the request which is a little bit hidden, and I'll talk more about this at our budgeting work session on the 10th. But our Facilities and Environmental Services Department has a division called Facilities Planning and Construction. They are the owner's rep, the project managers for many of our capital projects. We've embedded funding in that group because they are a direct bill to the projects. We've embedded some funding into that group to help leverage that those resources and that asset in our work with our ISPs. So as we get into working with the ISP on identifying concerns around easements, communicating out schedule and changes, and just all of those things that that group does routinely as part of the projects we manage, we want to leverage that resource, and it would be be connected in under the broadband office, and really the director connecting with those project managers to help us with our implementation of work through our grants, through potential direct funding, working through procurement. If the Broadband Authority wants to do another RFP, helping with that piece of it. It's really using the expertise that we have embedded in the county, applied to our capital projects, but being able to tap that. So it's a combination of leadership, management, administration, and project management as far as what this office would entail. The summary, which went to the board, and again, a week ago, we were focusing on one-time money. Now we're focusing on, the one-time money and which board took action on, and what would be recurring in 22. So we made a request for $3 million. It came from two sources of one-time funding to really be an infusion into broadband to get these programs moving forward. After a discussion with the board members and the two board members that are on the authority can certainly talk to their experience and questions and kind of their perspective on this. The board authorized through resolution to approve this recommendation. And as Mike mentioned, it'll come back as an appropriation in March for funding to allow us to continue our mission, which is really exciting. Bucky and Mike chimed in with some great answers to some really good questions, and helped provide the confidence that we can take this investment and continue it forward in a very meaningful way. The budget recommendation that was revealed today to the board and the public, it has two parts. And I'm going to start with the FY22 budget recommendation, which is kind of the second half of this slide. It's the recommendation is two parts. It is a recurring funding, operational funding level of $536,000 and change. That is to cover basically two components: the Broadband Office, the FTEs, and all the infrastructure that goes with that, and then $250,000 that's really geared to that equity program, the Access and Affordability Program that Mike talked about, that's in development. And then finally, there is a one-time funding augment in the 22 recommended budget for $350,000. And why is that in there? Well, as we get into the work sessions, part of what staff is recommending is to with the 21 funding, this $3 million that was approved by the board, as we work through the work sessions and we get feedback from the board on the receptiveness to the Broadband Office, we resolve questions. If it looks like that recommendation will carry forward into the board's budget, what we would like to do is to request a carve out of $350,000 of that $3 million in order to get our startup of the Broadband Office through the remainder of this fiscal year, and to get rolling with this Access and Affordability Program. So that $350 would basically be restored with this additional one-time money. I know that that's confusing. It's difficult to talk about because we have to wait until the board spends the time on the budget and we know what's going to come out, what's going to come out of the board for their recommendation, which then goes into the public hearing and the approval process. that's really the updates. I think it's really good news. The next steps are work sessions with the board. The county executive will present its administrative program on March the 10th. Part of that program, and really the biggest change to that program, is the recommendation of the Broadband Office. So we'll be doing a deep dive in with the board on the 10th. The appropriation is noted on the 17th, and then I think there is follow-up work we need to do related to broadband and the Affordability Program, talking about potential RFPs and other work that we want to do with this funding that is now going to be, the budget report in March should show a pretty significant increase in the appropriated line, and that's good news for the office. So that's the presentation side. Really would love to hear questions, comments, clarifications, etc. Thanks all.
I'm sorry, Trevor, I think I missed what the fast track RFP, what RFP is that?
Yeah, that I'll take that if you're okay, Trevor.
Yeah, please, Mike, because I think you put it in there. So
yeah, the interest is, with an interest of replicating what we did last year. Now is the time to start building another RFP. If there's interest in putting something out there to either A, get some additional interest from ISPs who are currently providing service, so extending existing service, or an RFP that's out to indicate interest in applying with the Broadband Authority for Vadi 2022. I think it's important to potentially put the RFP out there for both reasons, but the Broadband Authority may decide they want an RFP that's specific for an individual area. So I'm putting that out there, just hopeful that the Broadband Authority will start thinking about it. And at the same time, John Noreen and I are working on detailed listings of project areas, and there may be something that we discover through that from an equity lens that says this seems to be a direct fund project that we may do an RFP out because of the issues that we talked about before. So a lot more to come. Just be prepared. It seems like just yesterday we were wrapping up the RFP last year, but it may be time to turn quickly around and put another one out there. Does that answer the question? Yes. It
does. And I think if memory serves, it was a year ago, because I think I remember being in a hotel room for that board meeting back then, and I haven't traveled since last February, when you said, I have an idea, we could issue an RFP. And of course, that turned out to be brilliant and prescient. I've been thinking a lot about what we did with that RFP and how it went just over the past week, coincidentally. And I have a lot of feelings about the importance of doing it again and what we might do differently. And I would be very pleased for us to repeat that as soon as we could.
And to weigh in on the topic myself, I feel like it's the right time to go out for an RFP to finish the job, to see what would it take to connect everybody up, with the knowledge that we might ultimately, go to a contract for all or some of what was presented. But let's find out if we can find partners who want to get the county done, and what it would take to get that happening. And I know the work that Mike and John have been doing to get our list together. That's helpful when we get the Vadi 2021 data. We'll be able to either add 1,600 or take 1,600 names off that list. But this might be the right time to bring that forward and see. I don't think we could possibly get all that work done in a Vadi 2022 time scope, but we might get some of it done as part of Vadi 2022 and have it all teed up, ready to go for 2023 funding as well. So I would encourage us to shoot big on that.
Yeah. I'd also like us to figure out, in collaboration, I think, with some private sector partners to give us guidance on this, about how to move faster. I know we lament that RDOF funding can take many years, and Vadi funding is faster, but still a year and change from when we first considering something until it can happen is also a really long time. And I'm particularly interested in how we might be able to use this RFP to move faster, not necessarily fixed wireless, but figure out what opportunities exist that are just out of reach of existing networks. And I don't know, I'd like to think about how we can advance faster work through this. I don't have any solid suggestions. It's just an interest.
If you think of a way to get fiber strung more quickly, though, let us know.
Microtrenching.
Yeah.
Trevor, great presentation. Are there any other questions?
Trevor, could you share that PowerPoint with us, please? I'd like to sit down and read through it. I mean, email it to us so we can ponder it a little bit more.
I will do that before I leave the office tonight. Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Liz. I'm sorry. You had the floor.
The constituent services that you have on the new broadband office, is that going to be pretty much the way that you operate now, is the thought, the way we operate now with all the stuff that Mike is, or is that something different?
Mike, would you like to take this one?
I'll take that one. Thank you, Trevor. Please. Thank you, Supervisor Palmer. It is absolutely a different process. I think one of the things that Damon and I have been working on is a way for people to report their issues through mapping. Also, they can do it outside of mapping, but we want to be better or the best at collecting citizen comments about their ISPs. I think you might recall I was mentioning reliability. That is an important designator of applicable service. If you have a gig service and every Friday at 12 o'clock it goes out for an hour, it's almost not worth having. You're scheduling your day around it, those types of things. So one of the things that we're discussing is not only the issues that we receive frequently about the aging of the copper infrastructure, meaning people who are having phone issues. We want to collect that. And we also want to collect citizen input on community member input on how well their ISP is providing services. So we're looking at a much more thorough approach so that there's self-service as well as reporting that helps improve the service across the board, whether it's phone line service or fiber service. Both we want to use that process to help improve. I think, does that answer the question?
It answers the question, but part of the question was, yes, are we going to try to get a more thorough answer? But unfortunately, our main company that we're working with, CenturyLink Lumen, I don't know how much we can actually make them do anything. So we would collect the information. Would we do anything different with that information that we're doing now?
Yeah, the reporting process is going to be the same. I agree with you there. But the impetus, having the backing information may be in our favor when we talk to the SCC. So, individuals who submit information to the SCC, providing data, actual data about problems that they've been having with a service provider, I think it becomes more valuable and we have more justification for having the SCC go forward and apply penalties and remediation. So there's ways, even as an individual consumer, that if you're consistent, eventually the SCC will put in some sort of remediation. The more people that we have on our side when we present a report to the FCC and request remediation, I think it's more likely that we're going to have remediation for more. Instead of going one, you see the point I'm trying to make, instead of going at it one by one, let's put all of our requests together, and that'll help across the board.
I'm optimistic that reporting from a government entity would fall on more open ears than individual reporting might.
Yeah, I would assume. Thanks.
And sure. Trevor, thanks for the presentation. There's a lot of good news in there. I appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments on these topics? Well, great. Is there any other business we need to take up at this meeting? Fantastic. Well, there's been some interest in having us adjourn this meeting to a March 10th Board of Supervisors work session at 3 p.m. when many of the same folks will reconstitute themselves, just like last time. I'd be delighted to accept a motion to do so. Liz's mouth is moving, so I think she's making such a motion.
I was making the motion, and gosh darn, I messed it up. I would like to move that we adjourn this meeting to the March 10th work session at, what was the time? 3 o'clock?
3 p.m.
3 p.m. Okay.
I was sign language seconding that.
Yeah, very good. Donna seconded. Let's run down the list. Trevor?
An emphatic yes.
Waldo?
Yes.
Donna?
Aye.
Liz?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Bill?
Yes.
Fantastic. Then we stand adjourned until that time. Thank you all very much.
See you.
Folks.
Everyone.
Great job, everyone.
Dinner time.